The restaurant smelled like garlic bread and bad decisions. Sophia Reyes was not supposed to be here. She was supposed to be at home, eating leftover pasta and watching a crime documentary, the irony of which she would only understand later. But her cousin Danny had begged her to cover the late shift at the family restaurant, promising she would pay back the favor with 3 plates of arroz con leche and a full month of silence. Sophia had said yes. She always said yes. That was her problem. She was wiping down the counter when they walked in. 4 men in black suits, moving like shadows with expensive shoes. The restaurant was nearly empty, just one old couple in the corner sharing a dessert. Sophia straightened up and grabbed her notepad, ready to take their order, when the last man stepped through the door and she felt the air in the room change. He was tall, dark hair, pushed back, a jaw that looked like it had been cut from stone. He wore no tie, and the top 2 buttons of his white shirt were open. He looked like the kind of man who had never waited in line for anything in his life. His eyes moved across the room slowly, scanning, calculating, and when they landed on Sophia, they stopped. She did not look away. She never did. That was also her problem. "Table for 4, one of the bodyguards said. "Corner or window?" Sophia asked, her voice completely steady. The tall man raised an eyebrow, just slightly, like he was surprised she spoke at all. "Corner," he said. His voice was low and smooth, the kind of voice that gave orders and expected 0 questions. Sophia led them to the corner table, handed out menus, and went back to the counter. She could feel his eyes on her, the whole walk back. She refused to turn around. His name, she would find out an hour later, was Luca Marini, and he was the most dangerous man in the city. She found this out because halfway through their dinner, 2 men came through the back door with guns, and everything went sideways very fast. The old couple dove under their table. The bodyguard stood up. Luca did not move from his seat. He just picked up his wineglass, took a slow sip, and watched the chaos, like a man watching television. One of the armed men grabbed Sophia by the arm and dragged her forward, using her as a shield. She could smell cigarette smoke and fear on him. Her heart was hammering, but her brain, her annoyingly practical brain, was already looking around. The bread knife, right there on the prep counter, 3 feet away. She stomped hard on the man's foot. He yelped and loosened his grip. She lunged for the counter, grabbed the knife, and spun around, pressing the blade right against the throat of the man who had grabbed her. "Let go," she said quietly, "or I will actually do this." The room went completely still. Luca Marini set down his wineglass. For the first time all night, he looked genuinely surprised. His bodyguards handled the rest, disarming both men in under 30 seconds. The old couple eventually crawled out from under their table. Sophia's hand was shaking. She did not put the knife down until the armed men were on the floor, with zip ties on their wrists. When she finally turned around, Luca was standing right behind her, close enough that she had to look up. He was staring at her like she was something he had never seen before. "You could have run," he said. "It's my family's restaurant," Sophia replied, as if that explained everything. He blinked. Then the corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile, but close. "What's your name?" "Sophia. And you owe me a new bread knife. This one is definitely ruined." He laughed. It was short and quiet, but it was real. She could tell. Then his expression shifted back to serious. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a card. Plain white, only a number printed on it. "Those men will have friends," he said. "They may come back. To a restaurant. To me," he said firmly. "You saw their faces. You stopped them. That makes you a loose end in their eyes." He held out the card. "Call this number if anything happens." Sophia looked at the card. She looked at him. She thought about every crime documentary she had ever watched, every bad decision disguised as a good one. She took the card. "This doesn't mean anything," she said. "Of course not," he agreed. But the way he looked at her when he said it made her stomach do something very inconvenient. He left with his men. A few minutes later, the restaurant was a mess. The old couple left without paying, which Sophia could not even be mad about. She locked the front door, sat down on the kitchen floor, and stared at the plain white card in her hand. One number, no name. She should throw it away. She put it in her apron pocket instead. Outside, a black car sat at the end of the street for a long time before it finally pulled away. Inside it, Luca Marini told his driver to find out everything there was to know about a girl named Sofia Reyes, who worked at a family restaurant and held a bread knife like she had done it before. He was already thinking about her. He did not like that at all. Sofia told herself she would not call the number. She lasted 4 days. It was not because she was scared, she told herself. It was practical. After the incident at the restaurant, 2 strange men had been parked across her street every morning when she left for work. They were not subtle. Dark car, dark clothes, bad posture. They watched her walk to the bus stop and drove away only after she was gone. On day 4, she took a photo of their license plate, marched back upstairs to her apartment, and called the number. He picked up on the second ring. "I was wondering when you'd call," Luca said. "There are men watching my apartment." A pause. Then, very quietly, "I know." "Are they yours?" "No." Sofia pressed her fingers against the bridge of her nose. "Okay, so what do I do?" "Pack a bag," he said. "I'm sending someone." "Absolutely not." "Sofia, I don't know you," she said. "I held a knife to a man's throat in my restaurant 4 days ago because of a dinner you were having. I am not packing a bag and going somewhere unknown because a stranger on the phone told me to." Silence. Then, "Fair." She blinked. She had not expected that. "Then meet me," he said. "Public place. Somewhere you choose. We'll talk." She chose the busiest cafe in the city centre at 11 in the morning because it had large windows and she wanted to be able to see everything. He arrived exactly on time. Alone. Or at least, that was how it looked. Sofia was smart enough to know his security was probably outside. He walked in wearing a dark coat, found her immediately at the corner table, and sat down without being invited. "You ordered already," he said, looking at her coffee and the very large cinnamon roll in front of her. "I didn't know how long you'd take," she said. "I don't wait hungry." Again, that almost smile. A waiter came. Luca ordered a black coffee. Nothing else. Sofia took a large bite of her cinnamon roll and watched him. "Talk," she said. He did. He told her, carefully, without details that would actually explain anything, that the men who had come into her restaurant 4 nights ago worked for a rival organization. They had been there to send a message to him. She had gotten caught in the middle, and now, because she had seen their faces and actively stopped them, she was considered a liability. "So this is your fault," she said. He did not deny it. "Yes." She appreciated that. "What do you want to do about it?" "I want you to stay somewhere safe until this is handled." "How long?" 2 weeks, maybe 3. Sofia stared at him. "I have a job. I have a life. I have a cat named Biscuit. The cat can come." "That's not..." She stopped. "You're serious." "I am always serious." She could believe that. He had the face of a man who had not been frivolous a single day in his life. She studied him for a moment. Strong hands wrapped around his coffee cup, a small scar near his left eyebrow. Eyes that were brown, she noticed now, in this light. Not black like she had thought. Brown, but deep, like the bottom of a very old well. "Who are you exactly?" she asked. "Specifically." He looked at her steadily. "You know who I am. I want you to say it." A pause. "I run things in this city. Organizations. Businesses." He chose each word with care. "Not all of it is legal." "Mafia," she said simply. He did not flinch. "That word is dramatic. It's also accurate." He tilted his head slightly. "Yes." Sofia finished her cinnamon roll. She thought about the men outside her apartment. She thought about Biscuit, who had been hiding under the bed for 3 days because he could sense something was wrong. She thought about being practical, which she always was. "I'm not going to a random location," she said. "I don't trust you." Reasonable. "But I also can't keep living with strangers parked outside my window." She folded her napkin. So here's what I'll agree to. I stay at my apartment. You put your people outside instead of theirs. And we meet like this, in public, until this is resolved. You tell me what's happening. I stay informed. He looked at her for a long moment. She got the feeling not many people negotiated with him. Agreed, he said. Good. She stood up and picked up her bag. Sophia. His voice made her turn. He was looking up at her, expression unreadable. Most people who hear my name become afraid. I'm sure they do, she said. You're not. She thought about it honestly. I'm a little afraid, she said. I'm just not going to let that make my decisions for me. She left first. She heard him exhale behind her. Slow, almost like relief, but she did not look back. Outside, the city was loud and bright. Her hands were completely steady. She called Danny on the walk to the bus stop and told her she needed the next 2 weeks off. Danny screamed for 30 seconds straight. Sophia held the phone away from her ear and waited. This was only the beginning, and somehow she already knew it. The man Luca sent to watch her building was named Rico. He was enormous, 6'4", neck like a tree trunk, and he brought a folding chair and a thermos of coffee and set himself up outside her building's front entrance, like he owned the sidewalk. The neighbors thought he was a security guard. The landlord thought he was a relative. Sophia just gave him a wave every morning and tried to pretend her life was normal. It was not normal. On the 5th day of the new arrangement, Luca showed up unannounced. She opened the door, and there he was, holding a paper bag and looking slightly uncomfortable, like a man who had decided to do something and was now second-guessing it. I was in the area, he said. You were not in the area, she replied. You run a criminal empire. You don't just wander. He held up the paper bag. I brought food. She looked at the bag. She looked at him. She stepped aside and let him in. Biscuit immediately walked out of the bedroom, took one look at Luca, and sat down directly in front of him, staring. That's Biscuit, Sophia said. Luca crouched down to the cat's level. He held out his hand. Biscuit sniffed it, then walked away, which, for Biscuit, was a sign of mild approval. He likes you, Sophia said. He usually hisses. Animals are honest, Luca said, standing. He was looking around her apartment, her mismatched furniture, her shelf of books, the framed photo of her grandmother, the cactus she had named Gerald. He took it all in the way he took in everything, carefully. He had brought tamales from the place 3 blocks over. Sophia set out plates and tried to remember the last time she had eaten dinner with someone who was not her cousin. Tell me something about yourself, she said. Something real. He looked at her across the small table. What kind of question is that? A normal one. People ask them at dinner. I don't do many normal dinners. Clearly, you brought food to a woman you barely know who once held a knife to someone's throat in front of you. She took a bite. So, something real. He was quiet for a moment. Then, I didn't want this life. She kept her expression neutral. What did you want? Architecture. He said it quietly, like it was something he did not usually let out. I wanted to design buildings. I used to draw them in my notebooks when I was a kid. Big ones, small ones. Houses that looked like ships. Sophia looked at him, really looked at him. What happened? My father happened, and then my father died, and I was the oldest son. He said it without self-pity, just facts, so here I am. Do you still draw? A long pause. Sometimes. She let the silence sit for a moment. It was not uncomfortable. That surprised her. I wanted to be a doctor, she said eventually. I was in my 2nd year of nursing school when my uncle got sick, and the restaurant nearly went under. I left to help run it, and never went back. He looked at her. Do you regret it? Every day, she said simply, and also not at all. Both things are true. He nodded slowly, like that made complete sense to him, like he understood exactly what it meant to carry 2 truths at once. She realized she was leaning forward. She sat back. Okay, she said, picking up her tamale again. That's enough sharing for one evening. He almost smiled. You set a timer on emotional conversations. 5 minutes, she said. It's my limit. 5 minutes, he repeated, amused. After dinner, he helped clear the table. She did not ask him to, he just did it. And then stood in the middle of her small living room, looking like a man who did not want to leave, but was too proud to say so. The situation with the rival group, he said finally. I'm close to resolving it. How close? A week, maybe less. She nodded. And then I go back to my regular life. Yes, he paused. If that's what you want. She looked at him. There was something in the way he said it. Not quite a question, not quite a statement. Good night, Luca, she said. He held her gaze for a moment. Good night, Sophia. He left. She stood at the window and watched the street below, where Rico still sat in his folding chair, like a loyal mountain. Biscuit jumped onto the windowsill beside her and purred. Don't, she told the cat. Biscuit purred louder. She pressed her forehead against the cool glass and told herself very firmly that she was not feeling anything. She was not convincing. The call came at 2 in the morning. Sophia woke to her phone buzzing against the nightstand. Unknown number. She almost ignored it. Then she remembered her life had changed significantly in the past 2 weeks, and she picked up. Sophia Reyes? The voice was unfamiliar. Cold. We need to talk. She sat up, heart already moving fast. Who is this? Someone who can help you get out of the mess Luca Marini dragged you into. A pause. We want a meeting, just to talk. People who call at 2 a.m. to just talk are not trustworthy, she said. We're not asking you to trust us. We're asking you to listen. Another pause. There are things about Luca you don't know, Miss Reyes, things that might change how you see this situation. She sat in the dark for a moment. Biscuit pressed against her side, warm and heavy. I'll call you back, she said, and hung up. She called Luca's number immediately. He picked up in one ring, which meant he was already awake. Someone just called me, she said, from the other side. She heard him move, a door, footsteps, the sound of the night somewhere. What did they say? They want a meeting. Said they have information about you. She pulled her knees up. Luca, is there something you haven't told me? Silence. Not a short silence. A long one. Luca, there are things that are complicated, he said. That's not an answer. Sophia, don't, she said, and her voice was harder than she intended. Don't manage me. I am not one of your people who you tell half-truths, and they nod and walk away. If I am in danger because of you, I deserve the full picture. Another long pause. Then he said, I'll come over. It's 2 in the morning. I know. He came over. He was there in 15 minutes, which told her exactly how close he had been, and he sat across from her at her small kitchen table with a cup of tea she made without asking, and told her the truth. The rival organization, the Vega Group, was not just an enemy. They were former partners. 2 years ago, Luca's organization and the Vegas had shared territory and a business agreement. When the Vegas started crossing lines, trafficking, which Luca refused to touch, he had ended the partnership and reported information to a federal contact, anonymously. The Vegas lost people and money. They had been hunting the source of that leak ever since. They thought Sophia was bait, a way to draw out Luca and get him to make a mistake. They think I'm your weakness, Sophia said quietly. Luca did not answer. That was an answer. Am I? She asked. He looked at his tea. I came over at 2 in the morning, he said, very quietly. Her chest did something she was not ready to process. The meeting they want, she said, pulling herself back to practical. What if I go? His head snapped up. No. If I go wired, with your people watching, we can find out what they actually want, what they know. It could help you end this faster. Sophia, these are not reasonable people. I know that. She met his eyes. But I held a bread knife to a man's throat in my restaurant when I was scared out of my mind, and my hand didn't shake. I can do this. He stared at her for a long time. She could see him fighting himself, every instinct telling him to protect her by keeping her out of it, going to war with the part of him that recognized she was right. I hate this, he said finally. I know. If anything goes wrong, then your people pull me out. She folded her hands on the table. Trust me. You're asking me to trust you. That goes both ways. He closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, his expression had settled into something resigned, and also, underneath it all, deeply respectful. We plan it carefully, he said. Obviously. You do exactly what I say during. Within reason. Sophia. Fine. Yes. Okay. She extended her hand across the table. Deal? He looked at her hand, then he reached across and shook it. His hand was warm and firm, and he held on a second longer than necessary. Deal, he said. Neither of them moved their hands right away. Biscuit knocked a spoon off the counter. They both pulled back. Sleep, he said, standing. We plan tomorrow. Are you going to stand outside my door like a guard dog? Rico is already outside. So yes, she said. He looked at her, something warm and complicated moving behind his eyes, and then he left. Sophia sat at her kitchen table alone, staring at where his hand had been. She admitted to herself, in real trouble. And she did not mean the Mafia kind. 3 days of planning for one afternoon. Sophia wore a green dress and her grandmother's small gold earrings. Rico fitted the wire under her collar, a small, flat device that looked like nothing. Luca's tech person, a quiet woman named Priya, tested the signal twice in Sophia's apartment bathroom. You'll hear us the whole time, Priya said. Luca will be listening. Will he talk to me through it? Sophia asked. Only if necessary. You don't want to look distracted. Priya patted her shoulder. You're going to be fine. You've got good instincts. How do you know? Priya smiled. Anyone who makes Luca Marini bring them tamales has very good instincts. Sophia laughed despite herself. The meeting was at a hotel lobby restaurant. Public, which was its own kind of safety. The Vega representative was already seated when she arrived. A thin man in his 50s named Calderon, with careful eyes and an expensive watch. He stood when she approached, very polite, which she found more unsettling than rudeness. Miss Reyes, thank you for coming. She sat, ordered sparkling water, made him talk first. He talked for 15 minutes. He was smooth, very smooth, and his story was that the conflict between his organization and Luca's was a misunderstanding, that Luca had acted out of self-interest and greed, that he had betrayed the Vegas and left innocent people to suffer the consequences. He made Luca sound calculated and cold. Sophia listened to all of it without reacting. Then she said, very calmly, "And what do you want from me?" Calderon leaned forward. "We want you to pass a message. You have his ear, more than his ear, from what I understand. Tell him we want a sit-down, a real one. We want to resolve this. And if he doesn't agree?" Calderon's politeness did not change, but his eyes did. Then things become more difficult for everyone around him. There it was. Sophia took a slow sip of water. "I'll pass the message," she said evenly. She left 10 minutes later. She made it half a block down the street before Luca materialized at her side. He had been in a car across the street the entire time, and was now walking next to her, with his jaw tight and his hands in his pockets. "I heard," he said quietly. "They want to sit down. That's not what they want." "I know." She kept walking. "They want to know if I matter to you. They're gauging your reaction." He glanced at her sideways. "You analyzed that quickly." "I read a lot of crime novels," she said. "Also, that man was watching the door the entire conversation, not me. He was checking to see if you'd sent anyone to come in after me. He wanted to see if you'd lose control." Luca was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I know I'm right." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "So now what?" He looked at her, the busy street behind her, the afternoon light, the gold earrings, and something moved in his expression that he quickly packed away. "Now," he said, "we end this." The plan came together in 2 days. But in those 2 days, something shifted between Sophia and Luca. Gradually, the way water changes temperature. She could not point to a single moment. It was the accumulation of small things. The way he memorized her coffee order without asking. The way she started saving him the good seat at her kitchen table without thinking about it. The way he had started showing her his phone screen when something amused him. Rare, small moments of lightness that felt like gifts. On the second evening, they were going over details at her table when he reached across to show her something on a map, and his shoulder pressed against hers, and neither of them moved away. "Here," he said, pointing. "The exchange will happen here. My contact arrives at 9. And, Calderon? He'll come when I invite him. He's been waiting for that." He turned his head. His face was close, she realized. Very close. "Sophia?" "Yes. After this is over." He paused, carefully. "I'd like to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not tamales at 2 a.m. She looked at him for a long moment. "Luca, you run a criminal organization. I know. My life is very small and very normal, and I like it." "I know that too." She leaned back. He gave her space. Always, she noticed, he gave her space when she needed it. "What are you actually offering me?" He looked at his hands on the table. "I don't know how to offer things the normal way. I've never tried." He looked up. His eyes were very honest in this moment, more open than she had ever seen. "But I think about you constantly, and I come here because I want to, not because I have a reason, and I haven't felt like that about anyone in—" He stopped. "Ever." The word landed in the room like something heavy and real. Sophia's heart was doing something complicated. "You're honest," she said. "With you," he said. "Only with you, apparently." She looked at him for a long time, the man who ran a city's underworld, who could not say a single unnecessary word, who had told her about drawing buildings as a child, like it was the most vulnerable thing he owned. "Ask me again," she said, "after this is over." He nodded. A small exhale, relief. "I can do that." She turned back to the map on his phone. Their shoulders were still touching. Neither of them moved. "Now," she said, "show me where your contact comes in." He showed her. They planned until midnight. When he left, he paused at her door. "Lock all 3 locks," he said. "I always do." "I know." A pause. "I know you do. I just—" He stopped himself. "Good night, Sophia." "Good night, Luca." She locked all 3 locks. Then she leaned her back against the door and smiled at her ceiling. Biscuit walked over and sat on her foot. "Don't say anything," she told him. He purred. The plan fell apart at 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes before it was supposed to begin. Priya sent the message. "Calderon knows." He moved up the timeline. "They're at the location now." Luca made 4 calls in 60 seconds. Sophia was already in the car. She had insisted on being nearby, had refused to wait at home, and she could see the change in him. He became very still and very focused, the way a person does right before something serious happens. "Change of plan," he told her. "You go back. How many people does Calderon have at the location?" "Sophia, how many?" He looked at her. More than expected. His contact, a federal agent named Marsh who had worked with Luca for years, was already at the location. Alone. If Luca's people arrived late, Marsh would be walking into a trap. "You need a distraction," Sophia said. "No." "Luca, listen." "No." His voice was quiet, but absolute. "I am not using you as a distraction. Not for anything. That is final." She had never heard him sound like that before. It was not the voice he used for orders. It was something older, more raw. "Then what's the plan?" she asked. He was already dialing. In the next 4 minutes, he redirected 2 cars, called in a favor from someone who apparently owed him for a very significant past event, and coordinated an approach that would reach the location from 2 directions at once. It was extraordinary to watch. She had known, intellectually, that he was good at this. Seeing it was different. They reached the building, an old warehouse near the port, and Luca's people moved fast. Sophia stayed in the car as he'd asked, watching through the window. For 7 minutes, nothing happened. Then she heard the sound, a single gunshot from inside the building. Her stomach dropped. She grabbed the door handle. "Ma'am." The driver turned. "Mr. Marini said—" "I heard what he said." She pushed out of the car. She got as far as the building's side entrance before Luca came walking out, one hand pressed to his shoulder, shirt dark with blood. She stopped. He stopped. They stared at each other. "It's not serious," he said immediately. "You were shot," she said. "Grazed." He held her gaze. "Calderon is detained. Marsh is safe. It's over." She stood there, heart still hammering, looking at him, this impossible, complicated man bleeding in a warehouse doorway, and felt something she had been refusing to name for 2 weeks rise up and refuse to stay down. She walked forward, took his face in both hands, and looked at him very hard. "Don't ever do that again," she said, low and fierce. His good hand came up and covered one of hers against his face. "Do what? Get shot." "I'll do my best." She exhaled, shaky and long, did not let go of his face. "You," she said, "are the most exhausting person I have ever met." "I know," he said. "I'm furious at you." "I know. And also," she stopped herself. "And also," his voice was soft. She let go of his face and stepped back. "Let's get you to a doctor first." He almost smiled. Despite the blood, despite the warehouse, despite everything, he almost smiled. "And after the doctor?" he said. "Ask me at dinner," she said, "like you promised." He laughed, short, quiet, and completely real. She turned and walked back to the car and pretended her hands were not shaking. Behind her, she heard him follow. The dinner was at a rooftop restaurant that Luca had apparently reserved entirely for the two of them. Sophia stood at the entrance and looked at the candlelit tables and the view of the city, all of it, and then turned to look at Luca, who was standing beside her with his left arm in a sling and the expression of a man who was entirely unsure how this evening would end. "You reserved the whole rooftop," she said. "I didn't know what kind of food you wanted," he said. "They can make anything." "That's not why you reserved it." A pause. "No," he admitted. "I wanted it to be quiet." She turned back to the view. The city below was lit up, 1,000 windows, 1,000 lives. Somewhere down there was her family's restaurant, where this had all started with a bread knife and a bad night. 3 weeks ago, she had been a woman with a simple life and a cat named Biscuit and a cinnamon roll habit. She was still that woman. She was also, apparently, this. They sat, they ordered. Luca had his sling and his careful movements, and looked, for the first time, like a man who was tired, not physically, but in the deeper way, the way a person gets when they have been fighting something for so long they have forgotten what it felt like not to. "What happens now?" Sophia asked. "To you? To the organization? Calderon cooperated with Marsh's people. It'll dismantle most of what the Vegas built." He turned his wineglass slowly. "For me, things become quieter, more legitimate. I've been working toward that for a long time." "Legitimately legitimate?" "Mostly." He looked at her. "I won't pretend everything becomes clean overnight. That would be a lie, and I don't lie to you." "I know you don't." She tilted her head. "Do you know what I like most about you?" He looked genuinely uncertain. "Tell me." "You never once talked to me like I was less than you. You never tried to manage me or hide things to protect me. You just—" She paused. "You adjusted. You listened. Men like you don't usually do that." He was quiet for a moment. "Men like me usually haven't met someone like you." She looked down at her plate and smiled. "That's a very smooth line." "It's also true." She looked up. He was watching her, steady and open in the way he only ever was when they were alone. "You were going to ask me something," she said. After it was over, that was the deal. He straightened slightly, set down his wineglass. "Sophia Reyes," he said, very carefully, like every word mattered. "I would like to take you to dinner, many dinners, and to walks, and to whatever terrible crime documentaries you watch, and possibly to architecture exhibitions because I think you'd actually enjoy them." He paused. "I would like to be in your life in whatever way you'll allow me, even if that's very small, even if it takes a long time." The city glittered below them. The candles moved in a light wind. Sophia looked at this man, complicated, serious, occasionally insufferable, quietly tender, and thought about bread knives and tamales and 2 in the morning phone calls and a cat who had approved of him on day one. "One condition," she said. "Name it. You come to the restaurant, regular customer. My uncle makes the best mole in the city, and he will be completely insufferable about it, and you have to sit there and eat it and compliment him 3 times." Luca blinked. 3 times. Minimum. He was silent for a moment, then agreed. She extended her hand across the table, like that first night at her kitchen. He looked at it. Then, instead of shaking it, he turned it over and held it, palm up, fingers wrapped gently around hers. "Deal?" she asked. "Deal," he said. They stayed on that rooftop for 3 hours. They talked about buildings and medicine and the cat and the restaurant and the complicated business of becoming something new after a long time of being only one thing. When she got home that night, Biscuit was waiting by the door. She sat down on the kitchen floor, which she did when she needed to think, and he walked into her lap and stayed there. She thought about how life was strange, how the worst nights could become the beginning of something you had not planned and could not have predicted. Her phone buzzed. "Your uncle's mole. Saturday?" L. She smiled so wide it almost hurt. "3 compliments minimum," she typed back. 3 seconds later, "I know." She put the phone down and looked around her small, mismatched apartment. Her books, her cactus named Gerald, her grandmother's photo, her small and very normal life that was now also somehow, inexplicably, this. She thought she was okay with that. More than okay, actually. She was, she realized, very happy. Biscuit purred. The city moved outside her window. And in a black car 2 streets over, a man who had never wanted this life was sitting with a sling on his arm and a very simple, unfamiliar feeling in his chest, the feeling of something beginning. He looked at his phone one more time. Then he smiled, quietly, in the dark, all by himself. For the first time in a very long time, Luca Marini was looking forward to tomorrow.